Hello, folks. Welcome to the fifth episode of Incentivate Talks. I'm your host, Achala Rasal, and today we have Mr. Amit Jain, our CEO and co founder. We will talk about why companies feel that incentives are so complicated and how automation is helping companies to manage them better. So, let's get started. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Achila. Really excited to talk about something which is very, very close to my heart. So looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So, to begin with, why do companies feel that incentives are so complicated, especially in BFSI industry?
So BFSI industry, and again, every country has their own regulations, their own challenges, and the most important of it all, uh, most of the challenges come with scale. When we think about BFSI industry in general, right? Uh, Scale, the number of people uh, on the ground, uh, the different channels that they sell through, number of products, number of roles, and to top it all, it's a highly regulated industry. So all of those things kind of makes incentive programs really complex within BFSI industry.
That's interesting. Incentives seem so simple on the surface, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes. So, building on that, companies have managed incentives over decades, but what breaks when they scale?
So with growth, organizations face multiple challenges, right? Transaction volumes increase dramatically, uh, which is a good problem to have. But at the same time, data ecosystem is not scaled or designed appropriately to uh, cope up with the scale. That is always a starting problem. Multiple schemes across products, across channels, across roles, and the way business is changing, the way regulations are changing, your incentive schemes are changing constantly. So they add to the overall complexity and challenges as well.
That makes sense, which brings me to the next question. Where does automation actually come in?
That's a great question because when people think about automation in general, right, people think about automation as something which can operationalize the repetitive work. But automation generally is a lot more than that. These incentive systems, they handle calculations and reporting, but they also handle data transformations, governance, which kind of makes the overall experience lot more seamless.
Okay. So, when people hear about incentive automation, what do they actually imagine?
That's a great question because, and we have been in so many conversations with clients across the globe. The first step is clients are always thinking about automation will simply move their Excel formulas into the system. But that's a very myopic view of how one should think about automation. In reality, automation is organizing the entire incentive program journey, right from data collection, automating data ingestion, transforming data, right, so that different data sources talk to each other seamlessly, getting your transactions, aligning those transactions to different uh, uh, people across hierarchy levels, moving to actual incentive calculations where magic happens, all your exceptions and overrides are applied. Reporting, where you provide transparency to your leadership as well as to your sales force. Finally, giving them right kind of insights and nudges so that your sales force can perform better. And all of this is overlaid by governance layers where things like maker and checker, dispute management, payout approvals, and much more, right, can be embedded as part of the process itself.
So it's clearly much more than replacing spreadsheets. So if someone is running incentives entirely on Excel today, what does an automated setup actually look like?
So, as I explained earlier, the way we think about automation, right? The first step is data ingestion and transformation. Second step is sales alignment and creating, where you are assigning transactions to right people while applying the right kind of override splits and those type of things. The third step is the actual incentive calculations, whether you have target based plans, you have commission based plans, you have any kind of MBOs or KPOs in place. All of those are calculated within that component. Then the next step is where reporting happens across hierarchy levels for different leadership, functional leadership roles. Finally, providing insights and nudges through different mediums like mobile app, through internal systems, Slack, so on and so forth. And all of this overlay by different governance elements. Now, when we think about governance, people think about incentives only in terms of actual incentive calculations, but sales planning plays a big role as well. So, anything around target refinement, quota refinement, approvals, uh, ex- uh, any adjustments to incentive payouts because of exceptions, all of those can be managed within.
I think that kind of visibility would definitely make life easier of both management and sales. But a common question people ask is incentive automation only for very large organizations?
That's a very uh, that's a general view, but the way we look at it, incentive automation becomes start to become a lot more useful for organizations when they breach the 50 salespeople threshold mark. Is it useful before that? Yes, if you are a smaller organization which thinks like an enterprise, your process has complexity like an enterprise, yes, it is useful. But the moment you cross that 50 salespeople kind of threshold, that's when it starts to become, you will start to get a lot more value out of these automation uh, journeys. When you think about BFSI organizations in general, those are really large organizations with several hundreds and thousands of people on incentive programs getting paid on bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual frequency. So for these type of organizations, it's always good to start thinking about automation whenever they are ready.
Right. So once incentives are automated, what actually changes for organization?
That's actually a great question and something which is very, very close to my heart, because when people think about automation in general, they simply think about that, okay, manual intervention will go down. Uh, Probably we will be able to meet payload timelines. But then there are several other elements that needs to be, or several other outcomes that needs to be considered when we are thinking about automation in general. Your calculation cycles because of automation becomes lot more faster. So you can provide insights to your salespeople on an ongoing basis. So the salesperson journey becomes a lot more prescriptive, right? And you are not always in health check mode. Okay, that is first thing. You can provide lot more transparency to your salespeople so that they understand the incentive plans better, and their overall uh, understanding of how their payouts are calculated improves significantly. This results in disputes going down as well. Their trust in the system, their trust in the overall program improves significantly. We are talking about highly regulated industry. So automation actually helps you become more compliant with regulations and helps you run a much better, well oiled and governed program.
Wow, that's great. From your experience, what surprises companies the most after automation?
So during their automation journey, companies start to learn a lot more about the complexities that they have in their processes. When they are just focusing on doing the work, they are not able to think about at what all levels complexity has been introduced within their incentive program. In schemes itself, in the form of data, in the form of overall governance processes. So their eyes actually open up when they start on that automation journey. They start to realize that at what all places they are overdoing the governance, but there are several other steps where right kind of controls are missing. So it helps them visualize the current state of their program and allow them to streamline their processes for future uh, future growth.
Yes. That's interesting. I mean, it means automation often reveals the issues which were actually there but hidden. Can you share a quick example from BFSI sector where incentives get complex?
So BFSI industry, when we talk about, consists of several organizations which are very, very different in nature. So backing organizations work very, very different from insurance organizations. NBFCs, financial services, they work very, very differently as compared to securities organizations, right? So though they are kind of combined together because of the nature of business, but at the same time, they behave very, very differently. When we think about financial services organizations in general, uh, loan disbursement matrix, agent activated activations, right? Those kind of become an important metric. There are certain channel based metrics, event based metrics. When we think about insurance industry, persistency, premium persistency, that becomes a big metric, right? And to top it all, this industry is driven by contests, short-term contests. So there are a lot of challenges that gets introduced because of the different kind of contests being run throughout the year.
That highlights how dynamic incentive structure can be in BFSI. Given all these benefits, why don't more companies start the automation journey earlier?
So uh, that's actually a question which has two different levels of answers. One is human psychology, okay, which is if it's not broken, why fix it? If it's working, my existing processes are in place, they are painful, but they are working. Why disrupt those? Right? So that fear plays a big factor. But at the other end, right, fear of existing processes as well, where you have some level of realization as what are the things which are wrong with your existing process. My data is messy, it's scattered across different systems. My incentive programs are messy. All the rules are sitting in the heads of certain people and are not fully documented, right? So, the biggest problem is people having very myopic view about automation in general. They are always afraid that, oh, my work is not going away. I will have to still transform data. I still will have to do X, Y, and Z things to make it work. So my work will continue as is, which is not necessarily the case. As I explained earlier, automation is not only about automating calculation. Automation is about automating the entire program journey, right from data ingestion to govern. And the moment organization starts to understand that, that makes their decision making a lot faster and help them see the value of what they can get once they start on that journey.
People think that change is risky. So, in your experience, what is the biggest misconception in incentive automation?
Everyone believes we are a complex organization, irrespective of size. We have very complex rules that no one can automate. The reality is, most of it is math. The bigger thing that organizations need to start thinking about is how well they can think about documenting their messy processes, documenting their exceptions, right? And the moment they do that, starting on that journey is no longer difficult. The key challenge they are always thinking about, oh, I still will have to do all the pre processing of inputs. If you are in your automation journey with the right partner, in that case, even that pre processing of inputs, ingestion should be fully automated and should be part of your uh, system automation.
That's interesting. So, if a company wants to prepare for automation, where should they begin?
That's a great question, and we have worked with several clients across the globe. Uh, Obviously, some implementations have been very, very smooth, while others started on a slippery slope. Uh, but eventually, we help the clients get there. And the primary difference is clients who are very successful and their overall automation journey is smoother are the clients where they have their incentive schemes, their incentive plans well documented, where even if exceptions are a norm, they are well documented. They understand their data sources very well. They have those data sources documented. They have very well understanding of what kind of outputs they are looking for, what all different kind of systems they are interacting with, when and why, right? In addition to that, one key thing which kind of creates the difference between a good implementation and a great implementation. The organizations where they have their touch points, their approvals, their governance processes well defined, they their implementation journeys are a lot more smoother, and they start to see outcomes much faster.
But few companies might feel that their current process is bit messy. So is it okay to have an existing system which is a bit messy?
Processes in general are tend to be messy. And when we think about any organization, they have their own challenges. Some of those are cultural, some of those are more because of how their sales processes are, some of those are because of how different stakeholders interact with each other. So, these programs can be complex, these programs can be messy. But as I explained earlier, as long as those exceptions, those interactions are well defined, you are never too late to start your automation journey. For that matter, automation helps you understand these gaps, right? Helps you document these gaps and identify ways to make the process a lot more seamless.
Okay. And moving to the final question, what's the one shift in thinking companies should make when they start thinking about incentive automation?
There's one thing that I keep saying over the period of last decade or so, people have started seeing incentives as a necessary evil, and the focus has moved more to how do we calculate incentives and get done with it. The primary objective of incentives is to make your sales force more effective, how to align them with organizational objectives, and how your incentive program can help drive the top line. That is how the thinking needs to change to. To top it all, then we are thinking about incentives automation. It should not only about how we can automate incentives, but it should be more about how we can automate incentives without operational stress while making the sales force more effective.
Wow, great. I think one key takeaway is that incentive management isn't just about calculations, it is about building a system which can handle complexity and scale smoothly. Thank you, sir, for sharing such valuable insights with us. And thanks to everyone who tuned in with us till the end. Let us know in the comment how you found this episode. See you in the next episode with more such interesting conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Archia.